at least. What have you got?
A Quiet Passion. This is the new film by Terence Davies. You know that whenever there's a new Terence Davies film out, there's a sparkle in my eye and a sort of spring in my step. So it's a film about the poet and proto-feminist Emily Dickinson, wonderfully played, I have to say, by Cynthia Nixon, whose face always appears to be trembling somewhere between laughter and tears. She has these extraordinary eyes that are kind of astonished and slightly aghast, but also very, very, sort of full of hope, or full of something slightly mysterious. So she's told very, very early on, she's a poet, she's living at home with the family, very, very close, and she's told very early on by an editor that the classics of every language are the works of men, not women. But an editor agrees to publish what he refers to as her least wayward poem. She, however, is a very rebellious spirit. She won't kneel down when commanded to by preachers. She wrestles with her eternal soul, with her earthly loneliness, with her lack of recognition. She says at one point, there is always posterity, but I would like to be recognised whilst I am still alive. She declares that in her lifetime she will confront everything. She sees everything as a gender issue. At one point there is a discussion about slavery in which she talks about, everything being, servitude itself being gendered. The poems punctuate the dialogue. I mean, if you're a fan of Terence Davies, and frankly, who isn't, you'll know that
there'll be a few people.
Well, they can just get with the program. But one of the things about the film is that on the one hand, the story could be seen as very dark and something which is about suffering and about loneliness. But in fact, very much like bizarrely Love and Friendship, it is a film which is bristlingly lively and laugh out loud funny when it needs to be. Here's a clip.
Will you go with us to church, Miss Buffum?
Of course not. Going to church is like going to Boston. You only enjoy it after you've gotten home.
We are to pray for the repose of our late pastor's soul.
Doesn't that rather depend on where it's gone?
We shall become fast friends.
Of course we shall. I'm irresistible. Everyone says so. When the new pastor does arrive, you must point him out to me.
So that you too may be saved.
No. So that I will know whom to avoid. Don't enjoy your praying too much. It might become habit forming.
So, you can see from that, you can immediately why it is that I'm kind of vaguely in love with the film. I mean, terrific performance, as I said, Cynthia. And
the lines do sound delivered as though I know this is going to be a very funny line.
I know, and there is a lot of that. It's very kind of raised. But what you're talking about is basically people whose primary, mode of discourse is exactly that kind of. That's why I compared it to Love and Friendship, which is very much the same thing. It's very much the very witty wild. But it's really sort of beautifully done. As with so many of Terence Davies's films, this is primarily about the communion of women. I mean, fathers loom large, husbands are sort of witheringly portrayed, and marriage is quite literally compared to a funeral, and I mean literally in the literal sense of the word literal. There are some wonderful exchanges. There's a moment in which she says, Cynthia Dixon's character, Emily Dickinson, says, poems are the solace of the eternity that surrounds us all. And her aunt said, who said that? She said, well, I did. Well, she says, well, don't. Which was, I just laughed at that. But the other thing is, being Terence Davies, I mean, this is a film about a poet, and the film itself is poetic. It is a piece of poetry. It is a piece of visual poetry. I mean, the way it looks, painterly frames make you think of Vermeer. They make you think of the intensity of Dreyer, beautifully shot by Florian Hofmeister. I mean, compositions that just make your heart sing, because here is somebody who understands what cinema is properly about, the way in which the camera moves. I mean, if you're, again, everyone will know, if you know Davies's work, that what he has a way of looking which is often to do with slow movements, very slow glides, moving in, moving out, whether it's through rooms or around a room, or in one particular case in a theatrical space. I mean, he is somebody who makes you, I mean, he grew up watching cinema from the balcony of his, his local flea pits or, picture palaces, and being in love with cinema. And you can tell it, everything about the way he makes films, it just oozes a love of the medium. There is also a real, I think, profound philosophical understanding of what the poetry means. There is one section in which we see our characters age, and it becomes a commentary on the magic of photography itself and the poetry of photography. And I literally just sat there thinking, I love this. I just love this. And when it's finished, I will come back and love it all over again, because there is something about the way that Terence Davis makes films that it's almost impossible to think of other filmmakers doing the same thing. It was a subject about which I knew very little, and what I know about poetry would not fill the back of a postage stamp. But I came out of it feeling, okay, that's it. I've been completely engrossed in this world. You led me through this story, and it is a story that deals with life and death and spirituality and earthliness and salvation and damnation, all those other things, but does so in a way which is so engaging, so magical, that you never get the sense of the weight of the subject matter as oppressing. You come out of it feeling that you've been nourished.
See, because when you were talking about who isn't a member of the
Terence Davis Appreciation Society,
and it may well be that the majority of people listening will never have seen a Terence Davis film. So that's when I'm saying not only would they not be a member of the Terence Davis Appreciation, so they wouldn't really be aware of these movies that you're referencing.
But although you have to understand that I have gone on about, for example, of Time in the City so much.
Oh, that is also true. That doesn't mean that lots of people...
literally every week that it's on television, it is the TV movie of the week. They've actually stopped putting it on the lists now because it just becomes boring.
Tell me more about your black and white Liverpool film.
You know, there is colour in that film as well, don't you? It's not all black and white.
I'm just making the point that although you think everyone's a huge fan, most people haven't seen any of his films.
It's perfectly valid. And what I'm saying is go and see this and then go and work your way through the back catalogue.